Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm sure you're so excited to talk about documentation, but I promise this is actually, at least it's going to be sort of interesting. I want to talk about pertinent negatives, which, if you've worked with me before, for any length of time, this is something I harp on. I harp on it in my documentation. It's a crucial part of my assessments, and it's a crucial part of my pass down reports, whether I'm transferring care to another crew or transferring care at the ER to a nurse or to a physician. So it's not like this is an irrelevant thing. And especially when you look at what's going to keep you out of a courtroom, or at least save your ass in a courtroom, pertinent negatives are like the number one thing that give you an advantage there. So for those of you that don't know, what are pertinent negatives? Basically, you're establishing what isn't going on. So if a patient has fallen, you want to know, do they have any midline neck pain or back pain? No. Okay, cool. That's a pertinent negative. Do they have any loss of consciousness? No. Cool. That's a pertinent negative. Do they take any blood thinners? No. Cool. That's a pertinent negative. These will make or break your documentation. If you don't chart these appropriately, then you can have a call that legitimately was a very simple, either BLS or a non-critical ALS call that can look like you just completely botched that patient care. So the way I think of it is I want to know everything that's not going on just as much as I want to know what is going on. And especially when you use that as a tool to communicate with your patients, it actually works out very well for you in your assessments, because you're telling them, hey, I want to figure out the things that are going to be a problem like right now. The major stuff that I need to know, you gotta have a little bit of sense of urgency with it, and it communicates to them that you're taking it seriously. So when you rule out all of these pertinent negatives, you can be like, okay, cool. I understand you're having whatever the complaint is. I understand what's going on. Let's go get that looked at and taken care of. But we can relax knowing that we're pretty confident it's not, this list of things. We've narrowed down the differential enough to know that it's at least not a life threat right now. And not only is that relevant for your documentation, but also for building rapport with your patient. So as far as why is it such a crucial part of your clinical assessment? Because, well, it's kind of in the name, they're pertinent. I need to know what I should be doing, how I should be treating this patient. And your pertinent negatives are going to drive a lot of that. So being aware of what those pertinent negatives are for different treatment modalities, for different medications, for transport decisions, those are all factors that play into this conversation. And in these pertinent negatives can change. So yeah, you start out and they're not having this complaint, they're not having this symptom, they're not having this, sign of something, but that can change. Just like we talked about yesterday, because a call starts out BLS doesn't mean that it stays ALS or that it stays BLS. It can become ALS. Same thing with your pertinent negatives. You need to document both your initial pertinent negatives and any changes in those. So you're covering your ass because you're saying, hey, when I first got here, this is what I knew, this is what I found, this is what I saw. Period. The end. Here's how it changed. And this can, depending on the kind of service you work at, there's been times where, like, I've responded with the BLS crew. Get there, we all agree, this is BLS call, no problem. Package them up, say goodbye, everybody's good. I'm on my way down the road, I've cleared the call. Well, then suddenly something changes. And it can either be there was a change in the patient condition, or there was information that was brought to light that we didn't know before that was relevant, but maybe nobody thought to ask, or asked in a way that the patient didn't understand fully what they were looking for. So you're going to have those shifts in your pertinent negatives, but you still need to be aware of them. I personally, obviously, when you're doing an assessment, your rapid assessment needs to be airway, breathing, circulation, mentation, all of it. But once you get through that, for me personally, I like to hit a lot of big pertinent negatives right off the bat. So they're saying, okay, my complaint is this, whatever. Cool. Well, I've got a series of pertinent negatives attached to that kind of complaint that I want to go through and make sure that none of those are happening. And if they are, cool. Then that drives treatment and that drives what my next steps are. This is where it's important to differentiate what the patient says versus what they mean, or differentiating between what they say and what the actual presentation is. I can't tell you how many times I've been out to a patient who said, "Oh, well, my chest hurts." Okay, can you show me where? And they point to like right below the diaphragm. I'm like, that's not your chest. So cool. But, making sure that you're being thorough with these things, that you are properly vetting the story of the patient. And obviously, yes, you need to be doing full, thorough assessments and not getting tunnel vision, but doing some quick pertinent negatives right out the gate. It gives you a temperature check on how is this call going to go. That's part of your sick versus not sick assessment. You've done your initial, are they dying? Okay, now let's kind of break it down a little bit. And is this a patient where I'm going to have to do some work, or is this patient going to be pretty straightforward, either truly BLS or a basic ALS kind of patient where you're ALSing them because you have to, not necessarily because any treatment you're going to do is impacting them in some significant way. And I hate that we have to be that way, but I also understand it because sometimes ALS care is simply to rule out and cover your ass. So I get that it's frustrating, but these pertinent negatives are huge. They will make or break your call. They will make or break your career, really. Because if you don't do a good job of thoroughly assessing pertinent negatives, then you're not going to be able to triage very well. You're going to get lost in the weeds a lot more easily and get fixated on, okay, well, because of this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. Well, hold on a second. Just because someone says that they're short of breath doesn't mean they need oxygen in that moment. Sure, okay, maybe you can put them on a cannula just to calm them down. A little bit of prophylactic, or psychosomatic treatment. But it's important that you don't get caught up in the energy and the panic, and that you sit down and say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but what's not happening? What's not going on? What is going on? All of that I need to know. All right. How do your lungs sound? How's your actual work of breathing? What are all of your vital signs, not just your SpO2, because your SpO2 is not a great indicator of much, because it can be affected by so many things. I've had plenty of patients who their SpO2 was registering in the 70s, and they're talking just like me, and their color's fine, and their pressure and heart rate are normal, and they're fine. But I would be working with a partner who's like, oh my God, their SpO2's in the 70s. I need to put them on an breather. And oh my God, like, don't panic. Don't fucking panic. Look at your pertinent negatives. What's not going on? What's not happening? Cool. Problem solved. Carry on with your day. And this is incredibly important too when you're transferring care of the patient. And these are things that you need to communicate to the hospital, because they're not there. They're not there at the scene with you. They are having to rely on, basically, they have to play a game of telephone between what the patient says, what you say, and what's actually going on. And so relaying in as much detail as is, pertinent, seems to be the word of the day, is gonna dramatically impact not just the care they receive up front, but also your relationship with that hospital. Because if you are honest and thorough in your assessments and communicating your pertinent negatives, the hospital's going to appreciate it. They are. And so every time they see you, they know, okay, I know this guy has done his homework. I know that he knows what's happening and what's not happening. I know I'm going to get a good report. And I gotta say, like, I don't run into issues with hospital staff with this. Like, I don't run into issues with people giving me a lot of attitude when I'm passing down a patient. Like, sure, they may not be in the best mood, but I'm also not trying to have social hour with you. So if I sense that you're pissed, my report is going to be bare bones, give you everything, pertinent negatives. Hey, is there anything else I can do for you? Is there anything else I can tell you? No, that's fine. Okay, cool. Like, at that point, you've released me. I'm not going to try to force an interaction where you're not going to respond the way I like, and you're going to get irritated. I'm going to get irritated. There's just no point in that. Like, that doesn't do anybody any good. So stop doing that. Use effective, concise communication when you're transferring care, and please, for the love of God, keep track of your pertinent negatives. If there's one thing that I could pass on to the future generations of providers, it's master your pertinent negatives, hands down. So that's all I got. Be safe. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.